anymore. It's just a mix mash. I mean, Obama is just as much of a Republican as any Republican that's ever been in office.
I've seen this happening.
It's weird assimilation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's just you're fucked no matter what. It's either the same person.
Basically, because really our society is being run by gigantic faceless bureaucracies now, and those are much more dangerous than anything else because they don't even have a figurehead. They just continue, they roll on, and they run people's lives.
But the aspect of society where powers that be are trying to control people's mental territory, this is not a new thing. This has been going on for a very, very long time.
Going on for a very long time.
The newest incarnation. I mean, we had witch burnings where
exactly.
It's a very old.
Exactly. I would say that in our societies today, drug users play the same role as witches played in Europe in the 16th century.
Absolutely.
That's fundamentally what's going on. They're an internal enemy which the society can be mobilized to hate, because that's what the state does. It makes people hate and fear and suspect other people, because then they want to rely on the state for their defense and their protection. It's a game, it's a mind game, and it's been going on for a very long time, and it happens that the current victims are drug users. The word, it's interesting that language itself has been deployed in this war, so that you very rarely find the word drug separated from the word abuse. That you never find the notion of a responsible use of drugs. You find only the notion of abuse of drugs. And so it's become impossible almost to speak about drugs without incorporating this notion that there's some abuse is taking place.
Yeah, and the idea that you can actually benefit from them is an alien thought.
Completely alien, very, very much hated by our society. And yet, the research is coming through. We've had the research in the last year with psilocybin, easing anxiety of terminal cancer patients, MDMA with post-traumatic stress disorder, fantastically successful result.
And cancer, apparently. Have you seen that, where they're saying that super doses of MDMA may treat cancer?
Makes sense. All the joy and love that you'd feel just kills all the bad stuff.
I know. I mean, these. I believe that, Aldous Huxley called the psychedelics gratuitous graces. They're something that nature just gave us for free, a kind of grace, to allow us to experience something else. And
didn't Huxley coin the term psychedelic? He's the one who came up with it.
Quite possibly, yeah.
It was Huxley and I can't remember the other person. Man. Yeah, I think that they were trying to come up with a word. They had another word that they were going to use for it, but it sounded too unscientific.
Yeah,
so
you're right. Yeah, definitely.
Psychedelic's the perfect word. They nailed it.
They nailed it?
They nailed it, yeah.
What, do you subscribe to McKenna's ideas about the stoned ape theory? You know, that theory that human beings may have actually evolved from the lower primates because of the fact that we ate mushrooms?
Yeah. I came to that idea, I'd like to say, Terence McKenna, one of the great minds.
Fascinating
What
guy.
a wonderful man.
Amazing person.
What a wonderful man. An incredible loss that we lost Terence. He was a remarkable individual, and I never met him, unfortunately. But I love listening to his voice.
Me too.
I love his voice.
I have a whole section of my iPod is all Terence McKenna lectures.
Sometimes
it's amazing.
We go down to Brazil sometimes to drink ayahuasca, and sometimes late in an ayahuasca session, as you're beginning to return to this reality, it's nice to play a bit of music or a little bit of voice, and sometimes we play Terence McKenna, and I just remember one line was about how psychedelics dissolve boundaries, and he says, they'll dissolve boundaries between you and your cat, even between you and your washing machine. No, he had wonderful ideas, and he very intuitively, very far ahead of his time, grasped the notion that this sudden advancement of humanity had to do with psychedelics. What it did was it broke our rigid behavior patterns that we were stuck in and unable to change, and it opened us up to new possibilities. And you see this remarkable event taking place after 50,000 years ago, definitely to do with psychedelics. Now, since that time, there's a parallel track, which is the academic work on cave art and psychedelics, which is Professor David Lewis Williams of the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa, and he has absolutely taken it beyond intuition and totally proved, without any doubt whatsoever, that all of the cave art was inspired by visionary experiences on psychedelics. There's just no doubt about it at all.
How did he prove that?
You prove it by the nature of the art itself. It's rich with what are called entoptic phenomena, certain patterns, zigzags, grids, hexagons, honeycomb patterns, internested curved lines. The caves are covered in all of these. Go around to, the rock canyons in Utah, you'll see the same thing. Rock art all over the world is influenced by visionary experiences. And then classically, the absolute defining characteristic is the appearance of beings or entities in the art. And those entities are typically half human and half animal. It's called a therianthrope. That's from the Greek therion, which means wild beast, and anthropos, which means man. And this is one of the definitive aspects of deep visionary experience, is encountering entities who communicate with you and who are often encountered in this half man, half human form. So it's interesting that work done in the 1960s with, for example, mescaline, they found that the volunteers were drawing the stuff they saw, and one of the volunteers drew a man in a business suit with the head of a fox.
Wow.
That was an entity that had come and spoken to him in the trance-like state, no different from the man with the head of a lion and the body of a human being that you find in Hollenstein-Stadel cave in Germany from 32,000 years ago.
So what do you think is going on there? Do you think that you're dealing with entities that don't really have a form that we can understand, so they present themselves in some cartoonish combination of things that we're
really
aware
weird.
of?
Yeah. I think that, and I'm going out on a limb here, but I think that we're dealing, I don't believe consciousness is generated by the brain. I believe the brain is more of a receiver of consciousness. I think that's a really important distinction. The mainstream model of consciousness that we have in our society today definitely sees it as produced by the brain, the same way a factory makes cars. So if you smash up the factory, the cars stop being made. Ergo, if the person dies, the brain dies, consciousness just blinks out, gone, finished. That's the mainstream view. But the other view, that the brain is a transceiver or receiver of consciousness, that it is manifesting, it's the junction box that's manifesting consciousness on the physical realm, that raises whole different possibilities. Then when you destroy the receiver, the signal is still there. Just as if you destroy a TV set, the TV signal is still there, and you get into all kinds of possibilities from that. So the suggestion that I derive from that is that consciousness is fundamentally non-physical, but that for certain reasons, and they may be very deep and very mysterious, consciousness has created realms in which it is possible to manifest physically, because in a physical realm you have all kinds of consequences to your actions that you would not have in a non-physical state. A physical realm may be a very useful place to spend time if you're an ancient soul who wishes to learn and grow and develop further. And that's how I've come to see it. I think we, and that's how all ancient spiritual traditions see it, that we incarnate in these bodies in order to have the experience of life on earth. But we don't die when these bodies die. These bodies are like a suit of clothes that we're wearing for this incarnation.
I've always subscribed to the idea that creativity, when I'm at my best and most creative, and when I'm performing, doing stand-up comedy at my best and most creative, I feel much more like a passenger than I do a driver.
Yes.
I feel like when I write my best stuff, I have no idea where it's coming from. I'm not even really there.
Absolutely.
I'm just moving my fingers, and it's coming to me, and it's not even me doing it. And it sounds ridiculous, and you could say that, well, it's because really the ego gets in the way of creativity because you're always worrying about yourself. And if you could just put the ego aside, then your mind can work better. And I see that argument, but I don't really, it feels like it comes to me in these great bursts of ideas that I never considered before. And I'm like, well, where is that? Is that, maybe that's really something that I'm figuring out a way to tune in.
Yeah, you're tuning into it, and you're becoming a channel for the material, for your own material. Your consciousness is running the show, but your consciousness is not limited to this realm, and it's drawing down material from elsewhere. I've had the same experience with my writing. The more that I intellectualize the process, and that's particularly true since I've turned to fiction, the more that I intellectualize the process, the harder the writing becomes. Right. And the sooner I let off that intellectual control and just let it flow, the better it gets.
It's so strange how it comes in waves, though. It's almost like you
Yeah.
can't keep tuned in to the spiritual realm for any long period of time.
No.
I shake it off. I know after like a few hours of writing, my writing just starts to turn to shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess it's off now. It's back to me. Now it's me writing.
And the right thing to do at that point is actually to
Close
say,
the laptop,
yeah,
walk
close
away.
the laptop and go and have a break.
Yeah, save your work and try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's universal. You know, there's a Stephen Pressfield book, The War of Art, that deals with the concept of the muse, and it's a fantastic book. And I used to buy stacks of them and give them to people. I gave you one, right?
Yep.
It's
Thank
an
you for
amazing.
recommending that. I'm a big fan of Pressfield. I didn't know he'd written that book, so I'm going
It's
to
a
read
brilliant book. You know, I think I have a copy of it, and I will give you one. And it's the brilliant thing about it is it's really no nonsense, but it's all about, it's a no nonsense, put the work in, force yourself to do it, don't make excuses, put the work in. But then it's also about the muse. It's also about the idea that you are just sitting there and putting yourself in a position to tune into it. You just have to show up. You show up, you move your fingers, and let the muse come to you, and that the muse is real.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I mean, I have been a non-fiction writer all my life. I started out, as I mentioned, in journalism. I moved into ancient mysteries, but it was always non-fiction. You look at a book like Fingerprints of the Gods or Underworld, the book about our diving adventures, and you'll find that there's 2,000 footnotes, you know. They are, I hope they're readable, but they're also, you know, detailed, researched documents.